Continuing our team coverage on Vice President Harris selecting Tim Walz today as her running mate, he emerged from the most accelerated vice presidential search in modern history from a shortlist that included half a dozen Democrats. He was propelled by support from across the Democratic Party, progressive and moderate groups alike. So what does this mean for the campaign? Here's my exclusive in-depth interview with USC political science professor Dr. Grose. Dr. Grose, first off, your reaction to Kamala Harris choosing Tim Walz as a running mate, and why do you think she selected him?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty smart choice for Harris to pick Walz. I think one of the reasons she selected him is electability. I think he provides some support for from voters in the upper Midwest. He's from Minnesota. He's currently the governor. I think that's going to appeal to Wisconsin, to Michigan, to potentially other swing states in those areas like Western Pennsylvania. I also think she picked him because they personally clicked a little bit. He has broad appeal, but also similar in age to her. I also think one reason that he was chosen is he also does provide a nice balance, right? So she's from California. She's trying to present a national ticket. He's from Minnesota, and he said recently he'd only been to San Francisco once in his life recently. And so I think that balance between a Midwesterner and a Californian is going to help.
According to the latest polls, most Americans really don't know much about him. Do you think that will hurt or help him?
I think it could help him, but it also could hurt him. It depends on how he's defined. If the Harris campaign defines him quickly, it's going to help her and it's going to help him. If the Trump campaign is the one that comes in and defines him quickly and negatively, it's going to hurt him. I think on the upside for Walz, when voters learn about him, he's a football coach, he's a geography teacher. I actually saw him speak at a nonpartisan geography conference. He was pretty charismatic. And so I think if that message goes out, it's going to be positive. He is a little to the left in terms of some of the positions that he took as governor. And so I think if the Trump campaign defines him as too liberal, that I think could hurt. So I think the emphasizing the personal biography early, if voters learn about his biography, I think it's going to help the Harris campaign a lot. If they tend to emphasize less about biography and Trump attacks him for other things, we'll see what happens.
Do you think he's going to appeal to the moderate voters out there who may have voted for Trump previously?
I think he does appeal to them some, and I think he especially appeals to some of the moderate populist voters who live in places like Arizona, who live in Michigan, who live in Wisconsin, people who they're not conservative and they're not liberal, but they do sort of have a distrust of coastal elites, distrust of people who aren't usually, listening to people from Minnesota or Wisconsin. And so I do think his personal biography and his populist policy positions can help break through to some of that group of voters. There's really the kind of people, who voted for Trump in 2016, but Biden in 2020. There aren't that many of them, but his sort of personal biography might be able to break through that kind of voter.
Anything else, Dr. Grose, you would like to say before we let you go? And ultimately, how do you see this choice impacting the rest of the campaign?
Yeah, I think the other thing I want to add is both Vance and Walz are from the Midwest, right? And so I do think it shows how important that region is to the country. And the fact that the top of the tickets are from California and from New York and now Florida in terms of Trump, how important the middle of the country is to deciding the outcome of the election. So I do think part of what we want to look for in the future is, how does Vance attack Walz? How does Walz attack Vance? And I think they both have a lot of material that they're going to be able to work with.
All right, Dr. Grose, as always, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.